All right, so we are looking at from CC2 Chapter 1 Closure, number 145. So Closure 1-145, and these are portion webs. So portion webs, here's how a portion web looks. What we have is on a portion web, and there's math notes on this, but on a portion web, you have your fraction on top, you have your decimal on the bottom left, and then you have your percent on the bottom right. And then inside of your portion web is normally the a picture, like a picture representation, or a words, like a word representation. So I'm going to look specifically at A, and then we'll see if we need to do B, and so on and so forth. So A, in this case, I'm going to redraw. So A gives us 40% over here. So from 40%, how do we get the decimal, right? Because the idea is getting a decimal over here and then a fraction. So first of all, let's start with the fraction. So a fraction from a percent, remember, is just taking the number, the percent, and putting it over 100. So 40 over 100, that would be the fraction. And then if you wanted to, which I recommend doing, is getting the most simplified version of that fraction, right? So in this case, we can divide top and bottom by 20. So if I divide top and bottom by 20, I have 2/5. So 40 over 100, or 2/5. That's the fraction version. How do you get the decimal version? Well, going from a percent to decimal, if it's 40 over 100 is what the fraction version of a percent is, right? Well, what are we really doing? We're dividing by 100. 40 over 100 is taking 40 divided by 100. And if you remember, anytime you divide by 100 or by 10 or by 1,000 or by 10,000, when you divide by one of those base numbers, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, it's about moving decimal places. So instead of looking at this as doing the division here, right? Because what we look at is 100 goes into 40. Well, it doesn't go in evenly, right? So we'd end up having to add a decimal place and then put another 0. And so then 100 does go into 400. It goes in there 4 times, and then the decimal goes up. So that's how that division normally works. Okay, but the quick way of looking at that is if you've got 40%, right? The decimal normally is here on that. So what we do is we move, when you divide by 100, you move the decimal place twice. Do you remember that? And so really the answer is 0.40 or 0.40 or 4/10. And then as well, the other nice way of looking at it is if I were to read this fraction, that's 41/100ths. Well, look at that. As a decimal, that's 41/100ths. Means the same thing. Okay, so that's the conversion piece. And then what does this look like graphically, or in picture? I'm gonna do a picture. What I would do is maybe a square, and cut the square up into 10 equal pieces. Let's see if I can get it in 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I need one more. I'll just add one more. 10. So there's my 10 pieces. So how many of them am I gonna? I'm gonna do 4 out of 10. So I'll shade 4 out of 10, and that could be the pictorial representation of 40% or 2/5. Okay, good. Let's do a couple more. Let's do B, so you really get this. So B, again, the web, the portions web. I'm gonna draw it out. It's big enough that I can see it. And this time they give me the fraction 1/6 up top. So if I have 1/6 up top, what is that as a decimal? What is it as a percent, right? I think that's 1/6. Yeah, that's 1/6. So what does that look like? To make this into a, let's go with let's go with an actual, let's go with a decimal first. So to make it into a decimal, I'm going to show another way, right? So it's 6 into 1, right? Because that means 1 divided by 6. Well, 6 into 1, you have to put a decimal point there because we need to have a number it can go into. 6 goes into 10, if I look at it that way, right? And remember, I raise the decimal place straight above. 6 goes into 10. Oops, I meant to write once, and then I multiply, I get my 6, subtract, you get 4, get another decimal, bring it down. So then I have 6 goes into 46 times, multiply, I get 36, subtract, I get 4 again. Oh, I see a pattern here. Bring down another 0. What's going to happen is I'm going to keep getting 6. So 6 repeating. So my decimal in this case is 0.16 and the repeating 6. So that's the decimal. Okay. So what is this as a percent? Well, remember the last one, as a percent, as when it was a percent and we went to a decimal, I moved the decimal place over to make it smaller, right? Moved it twice because I was dividing by 100. But when you're going from a decimal to a percent, you multiply by 100. From a decimal to a percent, from a decimal to a percent, you multiply by 100. And when you multiply by 100, I take that decimal place and I move it twice the other direction. So really this is, as a percent, is 16.6, and again, repeating 6%. So there's my fraction, decimal, percent. What does this look like pictorially? Well, you could do a couple things. This time I'm going to do a circle, and I'm going to cut the circle in 6 pieces. So there's 6 pieces of the pie, and how much of the pie am I going to shade? 1/6 of it. Right? So 1/6, 16.6%, or 16/100ths. Okay, there's that one. That is B. Let's go ahead and look at one more just to really make sure we got this. Let's look at C. So I'll do my web. So, move it down. So we have, they give us, remember, fractions on top, percents on the bottom right, but this time they give us the decimal 0.375 or 375 thousandths. 375 thousandths. That's how you'd read that. So let's go this direction. Let's change this over. Let's go this way, right, to the percent first, just like what we talked about. What do you do to get there? If you multiply by 100 and move that decimal place twice over, you're going to get 37.5%. So what I did is I multiplied by 100 to get to a percent, and I just moved the decimal place twice over. Why did I do it that way? Because then if I want to go this way, right, if I want to go up to the actual fraction, what do? I take the percent and put it over 100, whatever that percent number is. So the percent number is 37.5. So I'm going to say 37.5 over 100. Now, the problem with this is you can't have a decimal fraction. I mean, you could stop there, but technically it's not right because you've got a decimal fraction. How do you resolve a decimal fraction? You actually multiply by a giant 1, which would be 10 over 10. Multiply by 10 over 10. Why did I do that? Because then that takes this decimal away, right? 10 times that moves the decimal place 1 over. And so I end up with 375 over 1,000. Now I have a legit fraction. But the other thing I notice is, oh, look, I can actually simplify this. So to simplify it, I'm going to divide by 25, top and bottom. Let's see, what do I get when I divide 375 by 25? I get 15 over, and then goes into there, looks like 40 times. Let's see, that's 4. Yeah, 40 times. And I can actually simplify that even further. I'm going to divide top and bottom by 5. And in this case, I'm going to get 3 over 8. So there's my fraction. That would go up here. Right? So what does this look like as a picture? Well, I'm going to do a circle again this time, and I'm going to put it in eighths. So there's quarters, and there's eighths, and I'm going to shade in 3 over 8. So 3/8. 1, 2, 3. There's 3/8. Okay? I hope that helps.